Yesterday, Ukrainian armed forces announced that they have started the counter-offensive in Bakhmut and taken back some positions from the Russians, and that the Russian forces have abandoned some positions in Bakhmut. Geolocation has not been done yet, but supposedly the counterattacks happened in Bakhmut in the city center. One area was around Slava Street right here, around this area, and another one was north from Bakhmut outside of the city. These two areas, Ukrainian forces managed to take back some key positions from the Russians. The Western military bloggers and the media are going crazy that the counteroffensive has begun. Hold your horses, calm down. This is a localized counterattack. This attack improved Ukrainian positions, but it doesn't start anything big yet. There is more time to it. I feel like I'm always here to oppose the mainstream media, so I'm gonna say the counteroffensive has not begun. This is a localized event. Some smaller Ukrainian counteroffensives were commenced also near Avdiivka. They took back some trenches from the Russians. And this is localized and nothing major. This has always been happening. Russians take some positions, Ukrainians take back some positions. Putin ordered Prigozhin, Wagner Group and his armed forces to take Bakhmut by the 1st of May. 1st of May is a big holiday in Russia and ex-Soviet countries. It is the workers' day, the workers' holiday, and it's a free day for everybody. Putin's unofficial orders were to take Bakhmut by the 1st of May, and as we can see, Bakhmut has not been taken by the Russians. So once again, Russian armed forces have failed to achieve their goals. Now I will report some news that I have not been done. I will report news on a Russian missile attack, unfortunately a successful Russian missile attack against the Ukrainian chemical plant. I don't like reading news like this, and I don't like when it happens, but I feel like not reporting it would be very bad reporting and very one-sided. Last night Russia attacked Ukraine with up to 20 missiles, according to which sources you read, and the Pavlograd chemical plant was hit. And there was an explosion. An explosion is an understatement. It was a huge boom, it was a kaboom. You can see the shockwave on a video, which I cannot show unfortunately, and on a video it truly looks like a nuclear detonation. It is the biggest explosion I've seen in Ukraine on video actually. And why? Because this chemical plant was used to store solid rocket fuel, up to 5,000 tons of it, and I guess some of it went kaboom. Rocket fuel came from decommissioned military missiles. It is not known whether Ukraine held some actively used military hardware or weaponry of missiles there. Decommissioned old fuel was held there, so it is not clear whether Ukraine will suffer any military losses with the loss of this facility. I don't know that, but a lot of old fuel exploded. One of you tweeted that Pavlograd location is very close to Dnipro River and it's deep inside Ukraine. So Ukraine would need much more Patriot and Iris-T anti-air systems to defend all of its territory. But the thing is, it doesn't matter how much anti-air systems you have, you cannot protect the entire country. Ukraine is such a big country. You have priorities like Kiev, Kharkiv and some military bases, and you always have to choose what to protect and what not to protect. And unfortunately, this chemical plant was not a military priority to protect. This is why we can conclude Ukraine did not hold any valuable military assets there, although I cannot confirm this information. I would just assume they would have protected this with a anti-air system if some military assets would have been stationed there. United States National Security spokesperson John Kirby has said that according to the newest US intelligence, Russia has lost about 100,000 troops in Bakhmut since December. When I say lost, I don't mean KIA, lost as in taken out of battle. Kirby mentioned that about 20,000 of those 100,000 were KIAs and 80,000 were wounded. Altogether, 100,000 taken out of action in the last 4 months in Bakhmut on the Russian side. That leads me to conclude, which I have said before, that about half of the Russian KIAs come from the Bakhmut vicinity. Kirby also added that from those 20,000 KIAs, half were Wagnerites. Talking about Wagner, I have a video coming from Prigozhin giving his greetings about the 1st of May, which I mentioned is a big holiday around this part of the world. Not so much anymore for Estonians, but in Russia it's still a very big thing.
Сегодня 1 мая, 14 часов 30 минут. Наилучшее место, откуда можно поздравить с праздником международной солидарности трудящихся, это город Солидар. За нами завод
I'm amazed about how disconnected from reality Prigozhin is. The best place to congratulate you is Soledar, and he's standing in front of ruins that is made by probably his own forces. This is the best place. Look what the ruins we have made. Now he says it was a factory. Well, it was a factory where workers could work, and you could celebrate workers being workers and their rights if there would be a factory. But there's no factory anymore because I guess Wagnerite forces have destroyed it. And he likes that fact, which is very strange. He's very much disconnected from the reality and how people see it.
В Солидарский, на фоне которого лучше всего сказать мир, труд,
Peace, labor, may. It's very weird hearing the word peace from his mouth. But I like his clowning, so this is why we keep watching him. I know you enjoy it also. Don't deny it. Don't deny it. Talking about Prigozhin, recently he came out with a statement that Russian Ministry of Defense is not giving him ammunition, Wagnerite ammunition, which is an old topic, right? But he threatened to pull out his forces from Bakhmut if they're not receiving any more ammunition. This is a very, very big threat, because most of the heavy fighting, bulk of the work, heavy lifting is done by Wagnerite forces in Bakhmut. If they would pull out, it would be very great for Ukrainians and very bad for the Russian regular forces fighting there. Of course, this threat, I think, is part of the information war, because if Prigozhin would pull Wagnerite forces out of Bakhmut, really, that would be an open rebellion against Putin. He would not do that. He will not do that. But the fact that he's saying it means that internal pressure in Wagner has become very big. I think Wagnerites, carrying insane losses, have started to pressure Prigozhin to fight back, you know, to get more ammunition from the Russian Ministry of Defense, to try to make their situation better. And the play he's playing that, oh, I can pull out if I want, that's not true, he cannot. But it looks good for Wagner forces, Wagner mercenaries, who feel that their boss, their god, is doing something for them. Unfortunately, Prigozhin's hands are tied. His life is connected to Bakhmut. I would even go as bold to say that Bakhmut's fate is Prigozhin's fate. If Bakhmut will be liberated by the Ukrainians, Prigozhin is done. If Bakhmut will be occupied by the Russians, and with the Wagnerite help, Prigozhin's influence gets bigger in Moscow and in Russia. But I tend to think Ukrainians will take it back and Prigozhin is bye-bye. His influence will diminish. My friends, a few days ago I made a Twitter account. I've not had Twitter, but I noticed that all of the military bloggers and politicians and that kind of stuff, it is in Twitter, and I'm behind in that stuff. So I've started now, so if you're interested about this news, I tweet the most important daily news about Ukraine in my Twitter account, which link is in the description below. You can go and follow and you'll get the most important news about 2 to 3 times a day. I'll see you in Twitter. Partisan activity is huge in Russia. It sows fear, a lot of fear. For example, in Bryansk, which is next to Ukraine, the Russian oblast next to Ukraine, a train was derailed with an IED explosion. On these pictures and videos you can see that the first 5 carts have been derailed and there was a fire. These attacks are huge in the light of an upcoming 9th of May celebrations in Russia, which is the most important day in Russia, and the more oblasts have to cancel these celebrations due to terrorist attacks, which what they call it, the better for Ukrainians. This is an information war victory for the Ukrainians. If Russians are afraid in their own land, that means the initiative is very strongly on Ukrainian hands, and they can make Russians react even in Russia, which is a huge loss to Russia in the information war. This happening in Bryansk affects all of the oblast around Bryansk also. It also affects the 9th of May celebrations in Moscow. People in Moscow are reading this news, they're getting ideas, they're getting paranoid. They're afraid. Maybe some of them don't want to go to the celebrations because the fear of the drones, all of that plays into the Ukrainian hands. Fear and panic are very exhaustive emotions to feel, especially in long term. I'm not saying that this derailment was directly done by the Ukrainians, but it was probably a partisan movement or anti-government movement in Russia. So far nobody has claimed responsibility for it, but it was a sabotage, that we know. There's a video about it also, let's watch it. I gotta specify, this is a video about the Russian propagandist who went to the scene of the derailment of the train. Let's see how he views it.
Хохлы делают абсолютно бессмысленные акции, которые лишний раз подчеркивают убогость их руководство, ну простите то, что я не фактуру вам показываю, а идеологию, потому что когда здесь находишься, ты видишь вот абсолютную бессмысленность того, что они делают. И где-то это даже хорошо.
I gotta specify, yeah, he thinks it was the Ukrainians, but it might have very well been just an anti-government movement in Russia. Ukrainians have not taken responsibility of this attack, and the handwriting resembles a partisan movement. So, of course, it's very easy to pin this to the Ukrainians, but it might have been Russians who just don't like the government.
Потому что мы видим их слабость, мы видим их дрожащие ручонки, мы понимаем, что они делают лишь бы делать хоть что-то.
We notice their trembling hands. Well, I have told you before how to read into the Russian statements. Everything is mirrored. So if they say the enemy is afraid, they're trembling, they're running away, that means we are afraid, we are trembling, and we are running away. So we already know from the news and what's happening in Russia that the Russian population is afraid. And they're also very paranoid. People are seeing drones up in the air. There's nothing there. They're just imagining Ukrainian drones everywhere because they're so jumpy at the news. It's gonna blow at any moment, you know. So I'm here to state that the Russian population is afraid of the Ukrainians and of the Putin regime. It's just about huge fear in Russia. Near the St. Petersburg vicinity, so even further to the north, a lot more further, very close to Estonia actually, a power line was blown up. You can see it on these photos. Again, these two attacks, they don't do much in the grand scale of things, but they're these small needles that pinch, and they sow fear and paranoia, and they make the people jumpy. St. Petersburg is quite close to Moscow. If this is happening in St. Petersburg, I don't know if 9th of May in Moscow is such a good idea. This is going through people's heads. I'm calling it right now. This 9th of May celebrations this year will be the weakest we have ever seen in Russia. The defense minister stated this: as of today, we are reaching the finish line before the counter-offensive. This is an official statement. It says it's very close. I would read out within a month from this statement. But it's all speculation. Nobody knows where or when. Ukrainian push information has changed in the past week or two. They have started to lower people's expectations about the counteroffensive. People in the West are also very jumpy because everybody has been expecting it, anticipating it, and putting huge goals to it. Ukraine has not stated that this counteroffensive will liberate their entire areas, but this is much what the West is expecting, what the people are silently expecting. Maybe not Crimea, but everything else. My take is this, that this counteroffensive probably has the potential to liberate the southern Ukraine, to cut the Russian land corridor in half with Crimea. I'm not sure that this counteroffensive would liberate the Donbas area, the Lugansk area, because these areas are very well defended since 2014. They have had almost 10 years to build up the fortifications there. But I'm pretty sure it will connect down to the sea. And that would already be effective enough that I think in some areas Russian front lines would collapse. But I don't think they would go into Crimea or go into Donbas. Again, might be totally wrong here. What do you think? Put it in the comments. President Cyril Ramaphosa of the South African Republic has warned Putin not to come there because they would be implied to arrest him, because South Africa is part of the ICC, which has vowed to arrest Putin wherever he goes into the countries which are part of it. There is going to be a meeting of BRICS, that is Brazil, India, China, Russia, in South Africa. And the only one who has to do a video connection there, who is not physically there, is going to be Russia, by the information coming out today. This is very humiliating for Russia, because this is one of the first trips he cannot make because of the arrest warrant by the ICC. Now the Russian side is trying to push that everybody would do the video connection. Nobody would go there in person, then it would not look as bad. However way you play it is bad. Putin cannot travel. He's banned, he's a persona non grata. My friends, this was it for today. Thank you for coming back, and I'll try to deliver you as much as I can about Ukraine. And as I mentioned before, I made a Twitter account. Link is in the description below. 2 to 3 times a day you get the most important news about Ukraine in my Twitter account. Go and follow. If you like what I do, best and quickest way to support is through Patreon. Tier 10 and above, and I might be butchering your name. And until my next video, my friends, Slava Ukraini.